Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It is still fairly mild and could be even classed a little bit warm in the north and the west at the moment under the higher pressure. However, we do have easterly winds starting to move in for areas further southwards and eastwards, more trapped cloud and cooler conditions over the course of the next couple of days. But we do start to see some proper cold air move in from the east, perhaps through Wednesday into Thursday, and some more precipitation as well as an upper trough moves in associated with that. However, as we head into the weekend, that high pressure will slowly retrogress up towards Greenland, and as we'll see on the GFS, GEM, Eastern WF and the ensembles, is likely to open the doors to Arctic air. Proper polar plunge could be coming from many of the models today. Again, the longevity of it and the severity still up for question, but all models do have a northerly wind arriving, some with some very cold air, others with just generally chilly air, maybe 5 degrees below average. So it is going to be turning a lot colder towards the weekend and next week. There is potential for quite sustained colder conditions, like the latest GFS is showing, but equally other runs are bringing it back in sort of generally average or warmer than average air, perhaps towards early next week. So only a few days of properly cold conditions. There could be snow associated with it as well, and again we won't look at that in any detail at all until we have things concreted up, which probably won't be for another day or two at least. So we'll have a look at what the latest runs are showing, as there is potential for some really quite cold weather to end April. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So, if you do start on the live radar, you can see at the moment it is pretty bone dry in most areas, and the best conditions are further northwards and westwards, closer to the centre of the high and away from any of this easterly flow that we're seeing coming in off the North Sea. And you can see at the moment we've got some showers across parts of East Anglia and South East England, and this is getting dragged in on that easterly flow. Cooler conditions, nothing amazingly cold yet, but generally slightly cooler with the cold air aloft and thicker cloud towards the surface, really holding back those temperatures. Now, if we do put on the temperatures, you'll be able to see how there is been a major hit to the temperatures in the south and east. Yesterday, we were seeing temperatures around 15, 16 degree mark. Today, struggling around the 9 or 10 degree mark. Further northwards and westwards, still under the higher pressure with warmer air masses, so still generally quite pleasant. You can see it's always to the west of higher routes because of the Föhn effect, the wind coming over the hills and mountains, descending, compressing and increasing in temperature. So best in the west at the moment, worst in the east and especially the southeast corridor towards London area, eastwards and southwards of that, as we do have cloud moving in as that easterly flow starts to arrive. As I said, elsewhere, if you see a bit of sunshine, it'll still be a pretty decent day today, but it will be going slowly downhill from all areas through the next 24 to 48 hours or so. And that is, as I said, because easterly winds are going to be dragging in colder upper air temperatures that are sort of forming up towards Scandinavia and Russia at the moment, and will swiftly be moving in off that easterly wind around the Scandinavian high to arrive at the UK probably through tomorrow evening. So if you have a look at the UKV now and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days or so, you can see at the moment that trap cloud in the southeast, a few showers associated with that, and it will move westwards through the rest of today. So those cooler conditions and cloudier conditions will move further westwards. So southwest England, South Wales, wouldn't be surprised by later this afternoon to be cloudy, perhaps with a few showers. Through this evening, that area of cloud will swiftly move through, and tomorrow, perhaps again some more cloud in the south and the east, perhaps not quite as extensive, because again today is associated with a slight area of colder air that does move through. But as I said, into Thursday, that's when some properly cold air does start to arrive. Through Wednesday afternoon into the evening, still pretty pleasant, clear skies out there for many, some cloud further southwards and westwards though. And then as we head into Thursday, you can see the proper cold pool arrives through the early afternoon, and that is associated with a big area of rain as well. Again, very cold air aloft with warmer conditions towards the surface in contrast, and the warm sunshine is going to really spark off some big showers. Wouldn't be surprised to see some heavy, maybe even thunderous showers associated with it behind the initial cold front, which you can see there, which is the more persistent band of rain. That does move through. It would generally give colder conditions, cloudier conditions, and some showery conditions for anywhere really through England and Wales before it does clear further northwards and westwards into Friday as it does start to form a proper area of lower pressure, again with some heavy thundery showers through England and Wales. And as I said, into the weekend we start seeing more rain associated with that as this area of low pressure forms with generally cooler upper air temperatures. So it's going to be pretty chilly, temperatures struggling around the low double digits. And you can see to the north a showery air mass moving in, and that's that proper cold air that could be arriving through the second half of the weekend into early next week as a proper polar northerly wind does start to arrive. Now the best way to visualise all this is look at the upper air temperatures. Now you can see at the moment the upper air temperatures are nothing spectacular, but they're generally around average for the time of year. You can see they are slightly cool in the south and east. That's why we've got some trapped cloud and a few showers through this afternoon. You can see that slightly cooler through this afternoon. But generally most other areas it's around average, maybe slightly above, slightly below. And that's why with sunshine it's sort of 17, 18 degrees. Without sunshine more towards sort of 13, 14, so around average for the time of year. Now you can see that cold pool eventually clears westwards through the evening, but it's not particularly severely cold pool. It's a few degrees below what majority of the air mass around it is. So that's why it's only a bit of trapped cloud and a few showers, but nothing more. But it's as we head through into Thursday, you can see generally cooler conditions start to prevail overall. So that's why temperatures will be slightly cooler through Wednesday as well. But it's that cold air that does arrive through Thursday. You can see that quite a few degrees cooler down towards -4 or -5 at 850 HPA moves in, and quite a large area of that, a good 5+ degrees colder than the air surrounding. Again, that's why it's a lot more energetic, a lot more unstable with a lot more cloud. That does eventually clear through, but we stay in generally colder air, and it does start to form that low pressure system, and you can see some warm air tries to engage in from the southeast, and that generates more energy within that low pressure system, peps up the showers and the cloud amounts, and then eventually as we head into the weekend you can see those blues appearing from the north, and that's that polar plunge that could be arriving into early next week. Again, still uncertainty how severe it will be and how far southwards it will go and how long it will sort of last. But pretty much all runs do have that cold air spreading southwards, at least for a time, through the end of the weekend into start of next week. So some very cold conditions could be coming then, on top of the generally chilly conditions that many will have through the rest of this week. So we do have a look at the 2 metre temperatures. You can see today in the north and the west still might be a pretty pleasant day, 14 or 15 degrees widely, maybe as high as 16, 17 or 18. But you can see that southeast corner struggling around 9 or 10 degrees again. Just shows you what cloud and a slightly colder air mass can do. Through this evening, temperatures mid to high single digits quite widely, and into tomorrow afternoon, perhaps once again, maybe 16, 17 in a few spots, but slightly cooler, more widely 13, 14, or maybe slightly lower than that. And then into Thursday, things will start to cool down substantially. So through the early hours, pretty chilly, 3, 4, 5 degrees. Again, nothing too crazy, but it's through the afternoon, those temperatures will be cold in the east. You can see where that cold front is at 3 p.m. 6, 7, 8 degrees to the east of it, 13, 14 to the west, and as that spreads through all areas will be pretty chilly. And into Friday afternoon you can see many areas not getting much above 8 or 9 degrees. Again, a bit of sunshine and lack of cloud, maybe 14 or 15, but many areas will be trapped under the cloud and rain and showers, and will not be pleasant. 7 or 8 degrees at best in a few spots, so really quite chilly. Into Saturday again, could be a bit of a frost overnight, and again we're not in a particularly cold air mass at this stage. It's generally chilly air mass, but it's nothing compared to what we could see early next week, and we'll explore that on the long range charts in a minute. And you can see through Saturday afternoon, once again chilly in a few spots, 8, 9, 10 degrees through many areas with cloud and rain, a few spots maybe 11, 12 or 13, bit of more sunshine, and then finally into Sunday you can start to see the cold air arriving from the north, freezing through many areas of Scotland, further southwards, again holding around the mid to high single digits, so turning much cooler through the rest of this week. Nothing especially cold yet, but it definitely will bring a chill to the air. So not looking too great. So do cherish the generally warmer and dry conditions we have further northwards and westwards at the moment, and generally probably milder conditions that we do have tomorrow. Nothing crazy warm, but maybe 14, 15, 16 in a few spots tomorrow. But after that, especially into Thursday, Friday, and into the weekend, it's just downhill with temperatures struggling into the low double digits. In some areas with cloud and rain sustaining, it'll only be 7 or 8 degrees. So really, really chilly for the time of year. So do have a look at the longer range, and you'll be able to see this in great detail how the next couple of weeks could evolve. Now, I must say, the GFS is one of the coldest runs today. It does show sustained colder weather, so we'll have to take that with a pinch of salt, especially after sort of day 8, day 9, when other runs do warm it up a little bit. So at least to day 7, this is pretty much what we're expecting now. But beyond that, so into sort of the middle of next week, we've got big uncertainty. So you can see the easterly winds are going in at the moment, and you can see that cold pool appearing from the east with an upper trough giving us colder weather. We'll have a look at the upper air temperatures in a minute, but you can see colder pool associated with a low pressure system, going to give showers and cold weather in general. It does form out into the North Sea, and the high pressure retrogresses up towards Greenland, and it starts to open the door to northeasterly winds, and those probably arrive through Monday. Look directly from Svalbard and the Arctic, follow those isobars, very cold conditions prevailing. It does continue all the way into the middle of the week, and this is where we do have some uncertainty. Some runs try to reintroduce high pressure from the south as the Greenland high moves more towards Canada and becomes a west-based negative NAO, so not affecting the UK as much. And some runs have the high pressure building into our south and try to build more of a southwesterly air mass. However, the GFS reforms that pressure towards Greenland and keeps a northerly or northeasterly flow all the way to the end of the run. Again, we won't look at this in too much detail because the majority of runs do have us warming up slightly there around especially day 10 and onwards, but GFS keeps us really quite chilly. Now, if you have a look at the upper air temperatures, the raw upper air temperatures, you can see how a cold pool moves through Thursday and Friday, and eventually some very cold air arrives through Sunday into Monday. -10 isotherm for Scotland, perhaps, and the -5 isotherm for all other areas. It does sustain all the way to perhaps Wednesday, and that's where we could see a slightly milder air mass movement from the southwest, but the GFS continues the northerly flow and keeps us relatively chilly all the way to the end of the run, with some portion of the UK under the -5 isotherm, which does mean there will be frosts and there will be the potential for some winteriness, especially over higher routes, but you couldn't rule it out to lower routes as well. With a direct norther like this, the air mass will be cold, and when you get very low dew points straight from the Arctic, it can mean we can see wintry precipitation with temperatures around 4 or 5 degrees. So it does mean there is the real potential to see falling winteriness at times. But again, nothing that would cause any hazards really at this stage, apart from perhaps some ice and frost in the early mornings and late evenings. If we also do run it back and just put on the 850 HPA potential equivalent temperature, just to show you the sort of air mass we are in. Again, it gives us a better overview because, of course, you get inversions, things like that. So not always the raw upper air temperatures give us the best sort of scenario. This gives us a better look at what the equivalent temperature at the surface would be to this sort of pattern. So you can see at the moment it's chilly, wind blues, indicating quite cold conditions, but nothing especially cold. And you can see that slightly colder air does move in for Wednesday to Thursday with that upper trough, but still just in the lighter blues, so chilly, but nothing especially cold. But you can see the darker blues and even perhaps purples moving in, and this is the sort of air mass that would give ice days and snowfall widely in winter time. So it is very cold air mass, but once again, it's end of April, so we wouldn't expect anything too bitterly cold. And again, just prevails and just holds on to the UK all the way to 384 hours. So yeah, really not good. If this GFS came along, we'd be seeing at least a week to maybe even 2 weeks of really quite far below average conditions. Really not ideal for the end of April and even into the start of May perhaps here with the GFS run. Now, the only caveat I would bring is that the other runs do cut off the cold air, perhaps around sort of 26th, 27th, 28th of April. That's the only caveat I would have, and you can see that from the GM and the ECMWF now. So you can see easterly wind moving in, cold pool moves in, and then we see the northerly wind arrive. Really quite cold for a couple of days, all the way to perhaps Tuesday, maybe Wednesday time, before the high pressure reforms, but over the top of us, and it actually drags up more of a southwesterly. And you can see the upper air temperatures do recover back towards freezing to 5 degrees at 850 HPA by the end of next working week. But we still do see a number of days of colder weather. You can see the -5 isotherm moves in for most areas for a good few days, starting around Sunday evening into Monday, and then lasting perhaps all the way to around Thursday. So 3 or 4 days of really quite cold weather there. Not quite as severe as the GFS was showing, but still cold enough to give frosts and some winteriness, especially in northern areas. So still looking really quite chilly there from the GM, but more moderated version compared to the GFS, which really does go all out in giving us very cold weather. You can see still 8 to 10 degrees below average for a number of days there, so still very cold, but just not quite as cold and sustained as the GFS. Again, I suspect it'll be somewhere in the middle, perhaps leaning more towards the GM scenario, just because the GFS run just looks ridiculous for the time of year. And again, all things would have to fall into place with the blocking positions to keep that cold air mass over the top of us and continue to flood in from the Arctic for that many days on the trot. Now, if you look at the ECWF, see how that does compare. Again, the easterly wind moving in at the moment. So the cold pool moves in for Wednesday, Thursday into Friday, and then we open the floodgates to northerly winds, and the cold air does flood in for a number of days next week, before eventually gets shut off around Wednesday, Thursday time, and we go generally slightly milder. Again, if we run back and have a look at the raw upper air temperatures, again, the cold poo moving in over the coming days, and then eventually that northerly wind arrive with pretty chilly air mass in for all areas, the -5 isotherm moving quite widely, perhaps even the -10 isotherm for northern Scotland. Again, perhaps not spreading as far southwards and westwards as the GFS was showing, perhaps not quite as far southwards and westwards as southwest England, which may stay a little bit milder. But again, we'll have to see exactly what happens with that before it eventually gets shut off around Wednesday afternoon into Thursday, with more of a west to southwesterly flow starting to move in. So really only 3 days perhaps there of cold weather compared to the week or week plus that the GFS is showing. So we'll have to see. Most runs showing some sort of polar plunge, but we'll just have to keep an eye on how severe it will be, how widespread it will be, and how long it will last. Now, just to finish, if we have a look at the ensembles, we can see this really well reflected. You can see generally average to below average over the next sort of 5 days or so into the weekend. You can see the colder air mass over Wednesday to Friday time there, a good few degrees below average, sort of 3-4 degrees below average. And then you can see into next week a proper polar plunge. The 1981-2010 mean is around 2 degrees at 850 HPA, majority of ensemble members down to -4 to -6 or lower. So a good 5 to 10 degrees below average, some even more than that. Now, the GFS operational run, as you can see here, all the way into early May, keeps us well below average, a good 5+ degrees below average, and some ensemble members do follow. But the majority, as you can see with the ensemble mean, return us more towards average, slightly above around the last few days of April. So a good 3, 4, 5 days of colder air before it does slowly return more towards normal, and again, a lot of precipitation as well. So it's not like it's going to be a cold, dry, it's not like it's going to be a dry, cold sort of northerly flow. It's going to be unsettled. There's going to be rain and could be winteriness around with this as well. So it's going to be perhaps really quite miserable at times. Again, we'll only be able to confirm that once these short range runs with precipitation charts and 2 meter temperatures do come in, which will be over the next couple of days. We'll be really keeping an eye on the UKV, as we could see some really cold and miserable conditions for this time of year appearing there, and we'll just have to, as I said, keep an eye on that. So you can see there is big uncertainty, especially around the 26th, 27th onwards, but the majority do get us very cold for a time at the upper air temperatures before it does respond back towards average. Again, you can see this well reflected on the 2 meter dew points, trending towards freezing for the majority around the last sort of week or so of April, before perhaps responding, but again, a lot of scatter, and the 2 meter temperatures really dropping next week. Some around the 25th, 26th, really not getting much above the double digits, 8 or 9 degrees quite widely, and again, that doesn't even take into account feel-like temperatures or precipitation and cloud holding that down even more. If you do look at the ECMWF with this as well, again, you can see very similar, average to below average over the next couple of days, next sort of 5 days in general, and then we see that plunge in upper air temperatures towards the weekend and start of next week. Most do recover within sort of 3 days or so. So the majority of ECMWF ensemble don't go quite as warm as the operational run does around the last couple of days of April, but quite a few of them do trend towards average or slightly above once again. So we will just have to see what happens, but definitely does look like there will be quite a cold blast next week, whether it's only 3 or 4 days, being most severe in the north, or whether it is a widespread, more long-term pattern like the GFS is showing. We can't say for certain at this stage, but the one thing we can say for certain is going to be cold this next week or so. It's going to be unsettled, especially towards the weekend and start of next week, as we see that cold air properly move in, and yeah, not not good at all if you want any outdoor plans or if you want those temperatures to be anything remotely warm or pleasant. It's going to be horrible out there. It's going to be pretty miserable, and it's going to feel like we're back in January, February once again. So anyway, thanks for watching. Make sure you stay safe out there. There could be some ice and frost around. It could even be some wintry precipitation as well. And really quite unseasonable for the end of April. Again, these sort of conditions at the end of March wouldn't be too unexpected, but the end of April, this is getting to the point now where it is really, really late in the season to see these sort of air masses. So hopefully this either moderates itself or doesn't last anywhere near as long as some of the runs are showing at this stage, and hopefully does sort of the last cold air mass we see for sort of 4 or 5 months at least, as we head into the end of spring and start of summer. So hopefully better conditions are coming in the next few weeks, but we've got to get through this for at least the next week or so, and then we'll have to see where we do stand. So as I said, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.